Good evening, all of you. Today we are going to learn about modifier placement. When we're talking about modifier placement, we basically understand that it is about the placement of the subject and the verb. And we will also learn what are dangling modifiers and what is a modifier. Basically, we have two kinds of modifiers. If we have, hope you have seen the session, followed the session of subject verb agreement, where we have learned about how we have to understand what is a subject and what is a verb, and how the number of the subject and the number of the action should match and stuff like that. And today we are going to learn about adjectives and adverbs that modify the noun or the verb. Let's start with the class. I'm Deepa, who will take you through this session. Now, when we're talking about, modifier placement, we need to understand that modifiers are basically words or phrases that describe something. And what do they describe? What do they show? Modifier placement refers to the fact that modifiers must appear directly next to the nouns they logically describe. Now, first we need to understand what modifies what. For example, running for safety, the townspeople fled from the chasing dragon. Now, this is a correct answer, and the incorrect one would have been running for safety, the dragon chased the fleeing townspeople. Now, here we need to understand who is chasing whom. Now, definitely townspeople would not be chasing the dragon because the dragon would be bigger. Now, and for safety, who is running for safety is a main important point here. See, when we are having a phrase like this, running for safety, we need to understand who is running from whom, right? So it can be apparently understood that we would be more concerned about the townspeople than the dragon. So therefore, this is basically a phrase which has to be immediately once the phrase is completed, we have to start with the noun that we want to modify. So looking at the sentence, we absolutely understand that we're not talking about the dragons running for safety, but actually we are trying to look at the townspeople who fled the chasing dragon. So definitely we cannot imagine the townspeople were chasing the dragon, but actually the dragon chasing the townspeople. So therefore, running for safety logically describes the townspeople, not the dragon. Therefore, the two must appear next to one. So therefore, immediately after the independent dependent clause, whatever it is referring to, we have to start the subject immediately. That is the basic rule. So let's go and understand what are introductory modifying phases. So therefore, whenever you introduce a sentence with any adjectival phrases, what was this that we were, the phrase must modify the grammatical subject of the sentence. Now, we should always understand that an adjective always modifies the noun, and an adverb always modifies the verb. So once we understand this, we will understand that an adjective cannot and will never modify an verb, and an adverb can modify an adjective, but it will not modify a noun. So it's very clear. So what we have to understand is when we are using it, we need to be more clear about it also. So apparently, whenever we are using any modifiers are basically adjectives and adverbs. They should be placed next to the subject or the object or the verb they are modifying. That will really help us not confuse where it is and what it is modifying or whom it is modifying, but rather it is very clear about what and whom is it modifying. Okay, so many a times the introductory adjective phrase is a present participle phrase, that is a phrase having a verb in its present participle form, ing form. Now this is basically a gerund form also. We can call it a gerund form also. And here, the gerund form is basically acting as a noun and not as a verb. Okay, let's see the example. Wagging its tail, Alison was greeted by the puppy. Now we need to understand who is wagging its tail. We need to understand who is wagging its tail. Definitely we understand that Alison would not be wagging its tail, but we have two one is a subject and the other one is an object, and we need to have some think about it that Alison could be a name of a dog, but at the end of it, definitely Alison was greeted. So definitely Alison is not the dog, but a human being, right? So therefore, greeted by the puppy. Now you have already a puppy, so definitely Alison is not wagging its tail, but the puppy is wagging the tail. So therefore, what we have to do is basically we have to bring the puppy forward and make Alison the object. Only the puppy could logically be wagging its tail. Introductory modifying phrases must be immediately followed by the noun they logically describe. Is that clear? So this is about the modifying phrases. We are going to learn a lot about them. We are going to do a lot of question and answers too, where we can understand it better. And okay, so let's go. These are called descriptive asides. This is a conventional expression used as an adjective that modifies the word system, peels away the unnecessary descriptive asides like this, or the unnecessary noun phrases or adjectives or prepositional phrases, and that will leave you with the heart of the sentence. Once we have the heart of the sentence, it will be easier for us to use and add whatever is needed and remove whatever is not needed in the sentence. Okay, for example, the actor used makeup, a man in his early 30s, to appear older for his recent role. Now, when you see this sentence, we see that the actor was basically in his early 30s. So what do you feel? The actor used makeup to appear older for his recent role, appears more better. And taking this, a man in his early 30s can be placed, what is it describing? A man in his early 30s, whom is it describing? It is describing the actor. So therefore, we can say it like this: the actor, comma, a man in his early 30s. So whenever we have a descriptive asides, we should always place that descriptive asides beside the main noun or the subject. We cannot take it along, or we cannot play with it. We have to take this phrase, a man in his early 30s, that is basically describing whom? It is describing the actor. So the actor is a main subject, and beside the subject, we take this, a man in his early 30s, and then we continue with our sentence. And now here you check that we have two commas here. What does a descriptive aside mean? Descriptive aside means that whenever we are going to talk about a subject, we're going to describe something about the subject, that is kept in commas, two commas. The one more thing is, if any information that is kept between two commas, even if it is removed, the sentence will not have any effect. Let us say wow. The actor used makeup to appear older for his recent role makes sense, right? Even if I remove a man in his early 30s, it still makes sense, is what you need to understand. Okay, so you always don't have to, it's a common rule that any phrase that is used between two commas, even if it is removed, it will still does not make any difference to the whole sentence. Clear? Let's explain. Only the actor could logically be described as a man in his early 30s. Descriptive asides bound by commas or parentheses must be placed next to the noun they logically describe. Okay, so now here a man in his early 30s, I have put in commas. It can also be used in parentheses. You could be using the brackets. We will learn about parenthetical, non-parenthetical element in our next session. Today we are going to learn more about this. Okay, what are relative clauses? A relative clause is a kind of a subordinate clause that contains the element whose interpretation is provided by an antecedent on which the subordinate clause is grammatically dependent. Did I did I use a lot of grammatical stuff or a more complex stuff? No, I'll let you know. See, whenever we are going to, let's take an example first to understand it better. That will make our understanding clear. The stadium was renovated in 2015 where the football team plays. Now, what are we talking about? The stadium. So where do you think the rest of the sentence should be put? Yeah. So this is what is it? See, where is basically a subordinate conjunction and it should be used next to the subject it is modifying. Relative clauses are basically, the part of the sentence which are dependent on the main clause. Now, the stadium where the football team plays was renovated in 2015 can be a better solution. Now, what is the subject that I'm talking about? The stadium. Now, when I'm using the word where the football team plays, so definitely I'm referring to the stadium, right? So if I am using where without where the football team plays is definitely dependent on the stadium. Is definitely dependent on the stadium and not on anything else. So therefore, the correct thing should be the stadium where the football team plays was renovated in 2015. Here, where the football team plays was renovated in 2015 is a dependent clause on the main clause, the stadium. This is what a relative clause is. Relative clauses generally use the subordinate conjunctions like when, where, that, whose to elucidate the whole sentence. Okay, so the explanation is only the stadium could logically be described as where the football team plays. Relative clauses modifier beginning with who, when, which, where, or that must immediately follow the noun they describe. So what are they describing here? The stadium. So therefore, the relative clause should be placed beside the main verb noun for clarity. Okay, so look out for possessive nouns. What are possessive nouns? Possessive nouns are basically modifier placement errors often result when the noun that should be modified is made possessive. Let's check what is it. Spinning furiously, the dancer's poise impressed us all. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the dancer or are we talking about the poise? The poise is given by the dancer, so therefore we should be more giving more importance to the dancer and not the poise, right? So let's go to the next version. Spinning furiously, the dancer impressed us all with his poise. Right, now in this case, we need to understand that the dancer is more important and that is the person who has given the poise and not the dancer's poise, right? So therefore, who was spinning furiously? Was it the dancer's poise or was it the dancer? The dancer. That's the reason immediately after this, we have to put the dancer. We should not use a possessive form in everything possible, rather understand it better before using it. Spinning furiously logically describes a dancer, and if dancer is made possessive, the description is illogically applied to poise instead. Okay, so these are basically possessive nouns. So we should not look at changing most of the things into possessive form, but we should be looking out for better things. Okay, let's go forward. Focus on what you can change. Don't try to, whenever there's a whenever there's an question where you need to change something, don't try to change everything that is possible. Instead, try to change whatever needs to be changed. Always understand that keep the adjectives with the subject or the object, and the adverbs with the verbs. That will give you better clarity. You know, always follow this formula of the doer of the action, and the receiver of the action. With the doer of the action, have the adjectives that will describe or to modify the action. I mean, nouns. And whenever the describe, you know, you add the modifier adverb beside the verbs, that will describe or that will modify the action. So that will also follow the same with the object also, where we are going to use adjectives again if you want to illustrate or if you want to describe the objective. So, or modify the objective. So therefore, if you use this construction, you will be messing less and you will be having more clarity. Okay, so let's start with this. Modifier placement errors often show up when you are asked to revise the underlying portion of a sentence. We can only change what's underlined. So if you feel the whole sentence is wrong, or if you feel that, you know, the most of the sentence is wrong, we cannot help it because we are not looking at that. We are looking at changing whatever is underlined, and also and within the options that are given to us. So we cannot have an answer that is out of the options. So we need to check, we need to find an answer within the 4 options given to us. Okay, so if the modifier is not underlined, then move the noun. If the modifier is not underlined, then move the modifier. Clear? Placement of modifiers in a sentence. Keep related parts of a sentence together to avoid the common mistakes of a misplaced modifier. If it's not clear in a sentence which term a modifier applies to, it is a misplaced modifier. Yes, so if I don't understand, I'm using an adjective to modify my noun, but if I don't understand, either my adjective is too far, or it is also mingled up with the adverb, so I don't understand whether what is it actually modifying, then it's a misplaced modifier. We need to understand where does it belong to, and we have to bring it there. And if it is not underlined, so therefore there's some mistake. So let's check it. So we have these 4 kinds of modifiers. Let's check them. 3 types of modifiers. Let's check them. The first one is a misplaced modifier. The second one is a misplaced participle phrases. We've already understood what are misplaced modifiers are, where the verb, adverbs, or the adjectives are not close to the subject or the action that they are modifying. Then it is called misplaced modifiers. Misplaced participle phrases are basically if we are not adding the noun immediately after the participle phrases, then that is a problem. Dangling modifiers, where we don't know what is it modifying, then it is a dangling modifier. So let's illustrate it better to understand. So what are misplaced modifiers? Any kind of modifier can be misplaced: an adjective, an adverb, or a phrase or clause acting as an adjective or adverb. If you put a modifier in a place it does not belong, you risk confusion, awkwardness, and even unintentional humor. Let's check how. He saw a truck in the driveway that was red and black. Now, when I say he saw a truck in the redway that was red and black, what is the red and black referring to? Is it referring to the truck or is it referring to the driveway? If red and black are the colors of the truck rather than the driveway, write the sentence so that it is clear. He saw a red and black truck in the driveway. This makes sense. Driveway cannot be red and black, right? So this makes more sense because we're talking about a red and black truck, and driveway we cannot paint it red and black. So basically the red and black refers to the truck. So therefore we should have it beside the subject and not away from it. This is basically a misplaced modifier. In the next sentence, it's doubtful that Anna wanted to be cremated before she died, but the placement of the adverbial phrase suggested that's just what she wanted. How can you be cremated before you die? Yeah, only it could be a wish, but it cannot be something. Let's check the sentence first. Perhaps anticipating what scientists would discover, Anna Anderson, who claimed to be the missing Anastasia, requested she be cremated before her death. So here, what is misplaced here? Perhaps anticipating what scientists would discover, Anna Anderson, who claimed to be the missing Anastasia, requested she be cremated before her death. Let's check. Rewrite the sentence to make it clear that the phrase before her death modifies requested and not cremated. Perhaps anticipating what scientists would discover, Anna Anderson, who claimed to be the missing Anastasia, requested before her death that she be cremated. So here, requested she be cremated before her death is quite ambiguous, whereas requested before her death that she be cremated is more clear. So this is what a misplaced modifier can do. It can create ambiguity. Now here we have only one subject and one action or one object, but sometimes we will have multiple subjects. In that case, if you don't have the play modifiers next to the subject or the verb it is modifying, then it is going to be really a problematic thing. So the purpose of a writer is to be clear rather than confusing it or making it a mess. Okay, so let's start with one more thing. In the following sentence, the placement of the modifier by Friday leaves us with a question. Did we know by Friday, or would we call for a strike by Friday? Let's check the sentence. We knew by Friday we would call for a strike. What do we know? What did we know? So therefore, it is unclear. What we know, we knew that by Friday what? So therefore, it should be more clear to avoid any possible condition, add that. We knew that by Friday, we would call for a strike. This is more clear. Or we knew by Friday that we would call for a strike. Both of them make sense. Okay. Let's go to the next one. In these examples, the suggested rewritten versions are not the only possible ways to correct the problems. So here I have made a correction. I have made some ways of using it. You might have different ways of using it. English is so flexible and so, it can be used in such beautiful ways. So if we can keep some things more clear about the basic sentence structures, then we can definitely create a beautiful pieces of writing. Revise your own sentences when you find confusing modifiers. You may not only correct the problem, but improve the sentence by making it more concise and changing its emphasis. Note that the placement of even a simple modifier can change the meaning of a sentence, as in the following example. Example. Not all the home team players were available. Why are we using not? Rather, it isn't just more easy if we can use it like this. all the home team players were not available. So instead of using words, not all the home team players, all the home team players were not available, is a more easier way of expressing things. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the misplaced participle phrases, where we are going to talk about different where the misplaced participle phrases where the subject needs to be following immediately after the participle phrases, and let's see how. Among the most common misplaced modifiers are the participle phrases, and writers often overlook whether the subject of the participle phrase is clear to the reader. Advancing across the desolate plains, the hot sun burned the pioneers. Who was advancing across the desolate plains? The pioneers. So therefore, the pioneer should be just next to the phrase and not the participle phrase and not the hot sun. So let's check it. The pioneers are advancing across the plain, not the sun. Make this clear. When I say make this clear, I'm not asking you to completely change the sentence structure, but rather do this. Advancing across the desolate plains, the pioneers were burned by the hot sun. Or the hot sun burned the pioneers as they advanced across the desolate plains. The second one also looks better, but if you really want to make the sentence, keep the sentence as it is, use the first one. That makes sense. No matter how you decide to rewrite the sentence, make sure the modifier is modifying the right word and is not going to something else. Let's check in this sentence. The buildings on the hillside constructed of highly flammable materials were destroyed first. Let's check how you can rewrite it. Understand the buildings on the hillside constructed of. Now here you have two things. The buildings on the hillside. Now on the hillside, what was constructed of highly inflammable material? Are we referring to the hillside that was constructed of highly inflammable material, or are we talking about the buildings? We need to understand that first. But you can improve the sentence by placing the modifier next to the word it modifies. So on the hillside, the buildings constructed of highly flammable materials were destroyed first. Now, on the hillside is an object which can be moved in the beginning of the sentence because it has nothing to do with anything else. I mean, it is not connected with anything else. So therefore, when we remove on the hillside, we could also say the buildings constructed of. Now, who was constructed of flammable material? Definitely not the hillside. So therefore, we are talking about the buildings that were constructed of highly flammable material. So therefore, they were destroyed first. This is how you need to be making sure. Yes, you could make a lot of changes, but always remain clear, or try not to completely modify the sentence. Rather, let the premise be as it is and try to move the modifiers before and forth to understand it better. Okay, so let's go to the next one. In the next example, the question is, in his glass case, was the collector preserving the ancient woman or only her teeth? Let's check it out. The teeth of the ancient woman preserved in a glass case were the pride of his collection. Let's check this. The teeth of the ancient woman preserved in a glass clay case were the pride of his collection. We understand that we are talking about the teeth of the ancient woman, but Have we just preserved the teeth or the woman also? Just let's check. If the answer is her teeth, then rewrite the sentence to better place a participle phrase preserved in a glass case. So let's check this. The ancient woman's teeth preserved in a glass case were the pride of his collection. Because basically we're talking about the teeth. And where was it preserved? They were preserved in a glass case. So that is the, we have descriptive aside. And then we want to say that the ancient woman teeth were the pride of his collection. So therefore we have phrased it in such a manner that everything is very, very clear. Let's go to the next, different kind of using it also. Preserved in a glass case, I rather would prefer this more than the first one. The teeth of the ancient woman were the pride of his collection. Now, when we are talking about preserved in a glass case, I understand totally that I'm talking about the teeth and not about the ancient woman. So therefore, the second one looks more better for me. You can also go for the first one, provided you're clear about what we are preserving. Is it the ancient woman or the teeth? Okay, let's look at the dangling modifiers. What are dangling modifiers? Dangling modifiers are similar to misplaced modifiers, except the modifier is not just separated from the word it modifies. It is missing the word it modifies. The writer has a term being modified in mind and not on paper. Let's check. Having already eaten dinner, the idea of a cheeseburger was unappealing. Where is the modifier dangling? Having already eaten dinner, the idea of a cheeseburger was unappealing. So let's check how better we can make this. Having already eaten dinner, I found the idea of a cheeseburger unappealing. Now here, dangling modifiers are basically those parts of sentences which should be there but we don't use them. It could be by mistake, or it could be we just missed that word. I found the idea is more clear because we understand, like, is it, who does it refer to? Does it refer to me or to somebody else? Okay, so let's check this out. Studying the lecture notes, the ecosystem structure became clear. This is again a dangling modifier. The ecosystem structure became clear when I studied the structure notes. Now, lecture notes. Now, the first sentence also, studying the lecture notes. Who studied the lecture notes? I studied the lecture notes. So I have to say that. Okay, studying the lecture notes, I found the ecosystem structure more clear, or something like that. So this is one way of using it. The ecosystem structure became clear when I studied the structure notes. It is more better. To win the election, money is essential. So let's see how we can change it. To win the election, a candidate needs money. This makes sense. To win the election, money is essential to whom? Right? So therefore, to win the election, a candidate needs money is a better option, or a better way of discussing it. In the following sentence, when upset and sad is an elliptical clause, meaning that a word or words have been omitted, in this clause, a subject and verb are missing. They are implied but not stated. When? Let's check. When upset and sad, her room was a refuge. Her room was a refuge to whom? Let's check. When upset and sad, she used her room as a refuge. So we are making it clear. I'm telling you again and again that whatever sentence structures we are using, it is not at all that they are wrong, completely wrong. but somewhere it is unclear, somewhere it is ambiguous, somewhere it is confusing. So therefore, making it more clear, making it know that the subject whose room was refused to whom is better than anything else. So, for example, just now I said more better. It should not be more better. More is redundant there. It is just better. Understand? In our flow, we often forget to use the appropriate word, or we overlook it, or we in our flow we just say it. But we need to understand that we have to adhere to the sentence structure. Okay, let's go forward and let's answer some questions to understand the concepts better. I hope the concepts were clear, and I hope they were more they were not confused. I did not confuse you further. I hope that I have made justice. Let's start with the question. Stored under a trap in the old barn, the farmer showed us a perfectly preserved form of a Ford. Preserved Model A Ford. The sentence above shows an example of what error is. So a fragment, is it a fragment modifier? Is it an incomplete modifier, or is it a misplaced modifier? What was stored under a tarp in the old barn? It is basically a misplaced, see, look at this. Stored under a tarp in the old barn, the farmer showed us a perfectly preserved model, a Ford. Let's see, one way to write this sentence correctly is, the farmer showed us a perfectly preserved Model A Ford stored under a tarp in the old barn. Stored under a tarp in the old barn, the farmer showed a perfectly preserved Model A Ford to us. Yes, the perfectly stored, preserved Model A Ford, the farmer showed us stored under a tarp in the old barn. So in this case, the best way to use the sentence is a sentence B. Therefore, in the first sentence, it is what? It's a fragment modifier. We have to change the fragment of a sentence from showed us. Instead of that, we have brought the us to the end of the sentence. That makes it more better. Now here, who stored it is more important. Definitely Model A Ford could not store itself. Therefore, the farmer stored it. That is more important. So therefore, the farmer showed a preserved Model A Ford to us is a better sentence. So therefore, this is a fragment modifier, right? Let's go to the third question. Running across campus in the snow and wind, I got frostbite on my earlobes. Running across campus in the snow and wind, my earlobes got frostbitten. By whom? I got frostbitten earlobes after running across campus in the snow and wind. Section A looks the best because running across the campus in the snow and wind, who ran, I ran. So I got frostbite on my earlobes is far better correction than anything else. So therefore we go with third A. After losing his portable flash drive containing the only copy of Blake's research paper, graduation seemed impossible, he feared. One way to write the sentence would be, after Blake lost his portable After Blake lost his portable flash drive containing the only copy of his research paper, he feared graduation was impossible. Blake lost his portable flash drive containing the only copy of his research paper on it. Graduation seemed impossible, he feared. Graduation seemed impossible after Blake feared he lost the copy. So this looks a lot of confusion. So we'll go with A. After Blake lost his portable flash drive containing the only copy of his research paper, he feared graduation was impossible. So we'll go with A. To understand why the computer network failed, the system documentation should be analyzed. To understand why the computer network failed, we should analyze the system documentation. To understand why the computer network failed, analysis of the no, this is not the right one. Neither A, neither B. A is the right answer. To understand why the system network failed, we should analyze the system documentation. Clear? Let's go to the next question. Which of the following sentences contains a dangling modifier? To raise a good dog, patience is useful. Moving slowly, Bowie stacked the rabbits. After eating the cat food, Bowie blenched. The first one, A, has a dangling modifier. Let's go to number 7. Is it to raise a good dog, patience is useful? For whom? Who needs patience? So A is out of question. Moving slowly, who was moving slowly? Bowie stacked the rabbits, it is right. After eating the cat food, who ate? Bowie belched, that is also right. So the answer is A. Which of the following sentences contains a dangling participle phrase? Pedrito got into serious trouble missing the grammar quiz last Monday. To complete the grammar quiz on time, you will have to click your heels 3 times. When taking a grammar quiz, concentration is everything. Check which one has a dangling participle phrase. A is the right answer. It should be missing the grammar quiz. Pedrito got into serious trouble last Monday. That sounds better. Let's go to the next one. Which of the following sentences contains a dangling gerund phrase? What is a gerund phrase? Gerund is basically a verb plus ing form, and we use that as a noun also. So let's check. On completing the grammar quiz, spiking your taste pencil is acceptable. Wearing a helmet is a sign of a healthy awareness of death. When she walked to her parents, She's reminded that she's lucky that they are happy and healthy. All of the above, none of the above. Here the sentence is D, all of the above. Which of the following sentences contains a dangling modifier? After washing my car, I waxed it. After talking with our veterinarian, I felt better about the prognosis. She called her boyfriend because she missed him. C. In this, we have a dangling modifier. Missing her boyfriend, she called him. Yeah, ninth one is C. Let's go to the number 10. The sentence John wants to really do well on this exam contains which of the following errors? John wants to really do really well. So that is an infinite, split infinite, right? What is an infinite word? Infinite verb is where we use the verb with the to form. To do is basically an infinite verb, and here we have had the to do is basically split by a word adverb really. So that is why it is a split infinite. John wants to really do well on this exam, or John wants to do really well on this exam, was makes sense. Which of the following sentences contains a dangling modifier? Having worked for the company for 20 years, I was surprised to learn that my retirement benefits would not be sufficient. Having taught phonology every semester for the last 5 years, he was eager to teach syntax. After sweating in Revis Hall throughout the summer, I'm ready for winter. E is the right answer. Having worked for the company for 20 years, that is a phrase. And I was surprised, makes sense. So that is right. Having taught phonology every semester for the last 5 years, he was eager, makes sense. After sweating in Revis Hall throughout the summer, I am ready. This makes sense. So therefore, none of the above has the dangling modifier problem. Which of the following sentences has a misplaced modifier? Let's check. He only talks about changing his habits. Intended meaning is he only talks but does nothing, like consulting a physician or psychiatrist about changing his habits. So let's check the other sentences. A dog appeared in my dreams that sang like an angel. Dog dreams, though. The stick on the grill is hers. None of the above. Let's go to the 13th question. Only Bill wanted to go to the lake. Intended meaning is Bill wanted to go to the lake, but no one else did. Bill only hinted that he would help us move. Intended meaning is Bill hinted but did not, for example, promise that he would help us move. All of the above is the right answer. None of them are grammatically correct. Let me show you how. Only Bill wanted to go to the go to the lake. Here, Bill only wanted to go to the lake. Or, that does not make sense. Bill only hinted that he would help us move. This also does not make sense. Bill wanted only Mary to win. Bill only wanted Mary to win is a make sense. So therefore, all of the above, they are grammatically incorrect. I'm sorry, it's not all of the above. None of the above are correct. They are grammatically correct. We could be making better sentences. Let's go to the 14th question. Which of the following sentences has a misplaced modifier? What is a misplaced modifier? The dog bit only the mail carrier. Intended meaning is the bat bit the mail carrier but did not bite anyone else. He talked too quickly. You should consider your options carefully. None of the above is the right answer because all of them right sound fine. He talked too quickly, makes sense. You should consider your options carefully, makes sense. The dog bit only the mail carrier, makes sense. Rather, I would suggest, yeah, all of the above are right. None of the above has a misplaced modifier. Let's go to the next question. Which of the following sentences has a misplaced modifier? Most stress disorders can be effectively treated with serotonin uptake inhibitors. These disorders include depression, heat intolerance, oncophobia, pathologic jealousy, dysthymia, dithymia, and trichotillomania. Most dictionaries will not have obscure medical terminology, although most good dictionaries will have the Greek and Latin roots that morphologically compose the terminology. None of the above is the right answer for this question. Let's go to the 16th one. Before going to the 16th one, I would like to tell you that in all this, we have understood what are basically dangling modifiers. Just have a quick recap of what we have done before. These are three things that are really important: the misplaced modifiers, misplaced participle phrases, and dangling modifiers. We need to understand what they are, and they really play a vital role on your SAT test because they'll be complex sentences, they'll be in the form of a paragraph, and you need to understand which one is going right with what, and we just cannot go along. thinking that this is the subject, this is the object, because they're not going to be independent sentences, but they are going to be in the form of a paragraph or in a passage. So therefore, we need to understand what went wrong where. So once again, misplaced modifiers are basically modifiers. Let's take the example of the truck. The misplaced modifiers is where the modifier is misplaced because it is not next to the verb, to the subject, it is modifying. For example, here the black and red is basically modifying the truck, not the driveway. Therefore, the red and black the red and black word should be beside the truck and not beside the driveway. The next one is basically the misplaced participle phrases. In misplaced participle phrases, we will understand that the ing form is basically in the participle phrases there. Immediately after that part of the phrase is over, we have to start with the noun and not with anything else, not even a conjunction. Advancing across the desolate plains, the pioneers were burned by the hot sun is the right usage, right? Let's go to the last one, the dangling modifiers. The dangling modifier is where you don't put basically the subject and you start the sentence. Having all you presume that the person already knows who the subject is, but the point is that we should have the subject. For example, having already eaten dinner, I had no idea. I found the idea of a cheeseburger was unappealing. Okay, so these are basically the three kinds of things that you should be understanding, and all the three will really help you understand. So before this session, if you still have doubts or if you still are confused, please watch the subject verb agreement session, and once that is clear, this will become better. This will become more acceptable, and I hope this session was informative and useful. Thank you so much.